right, good morning, everyone. Sorry about that little delay. We had some technical difficulties, but I think we've got it pretty well managed now. Sorry about that. It just happens. It happens to the best. And Eve is a pro at this, and yet you just
Yeah,
never know.
Eve is going to make this work. Uh,
Good
I'm
morning, good
having
morning.
fun so far. I'm afraid to move this, to tell you the
Yeah,
truth.
I wouldn't,
I,
I wouldn't, don't fuss with it now, Eve, because
I'm not. I'm not. I have the easel at this height. So now I'm on my tippy toes because if I come down, then they won't see anything. So I'm just going to go for it. Is that good?
Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for being patient. I don't think you can see. I have on my apron, I will take it off because I want my brownie points. I have my pin. So
Yeah,
I am a
excellent.
I'm a
Yay.
card.
Good,
Yeah. And I even have my other little pin also, but let's just get on with the show.
good
So
job, Eve. Good job.
thank you, Pam. I love brownie points. Yes, I do. I have a lot of things to share, and this has thrown me off a little bit. But if you're a pro, you're a pro. If you're not, so be it. I'll do my best. I will take any questions anyone has. I am more than willing to answer questions. I do not consider it an interruption whatsoever. And I have so many things to share. But I think the best thing we should do to start is just talk a few minutes about texture and why I particularly find it to be important. What you see on the easel is my usual board. So I have a reference, and this particular reference in black and white is the next thing. And I keep I can't even talk. I was going to say a Ferris wheel, a color wheel. I use several color wheels. This is the one that I always keep on my board. I always have a grayscale value scale to compare because there's values in light, medium, and dark, and there are color note values. And I keep the elements of design as a reminder to myself with some other notes. Mostly I put everywhere in the studio. I put squint because it's so important that we see things properly. In a plein air setting, I'm going to have to move around a little bit to get different things I had set up in another spot because of whatever the remote, I think, is doing. But if I were outside for values, I would use the Eric Rhodes glasses rather than a piece of cellophane because values are so important. And so in that vein, when I set up, I better take this off or we won't see anything. But when I set up, I always have a 3 thumbnails, and I'll show you those in a minute. In a vertical format, I see some students just this week. They had a horizontal photo reference, and then they went to make it on the 3 thumbnails: the outline thumbnail, the value sketch that we paint from, and the notan. But they changed it from the horizontal to a vertical in the thumbnails. So whatever comes afterwards won't work. And so first thing I do, and let me share that I do use, besides doing it myself, I do use apps. So for example, I hope you can see this. Yes, you can. Same reference photo, take it to black and white. And then I put it in the Color Snap, which is a Sherwin-Williams app. I don't think maybe it's not free, maybe it's a couple dollars, but what it does is it brings up from the photograph. So if your photograph colors are skewed, your colors will be skewed, but I don't use it for colors per se. What it does is it gives me, for people who feel challenged with colors, I think that's my only forte, is I'm very intuitive with colors. So people that have trouble with colors, whatever that word trouble in quote means, if you at least get a start and put light, medium, and dark of each of the colors that they show you, and I always work with light, medium, and darks, and it goes back to the color wheel. The color wheel is a fabulous, fabulous tool. It shows me right away when I go to any color, light, medium, and dark. I mean, it's just blatant. So by doing that, I limit my palette. And so in this case, they show me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They show me seven different hues. And if I have 3 for each one, then I have a limited palette. My problem, and as many other people have, we have all these wonderful pastels, boxes and boxes, and they're so pretty. And then you go and you touch and you pick and you get the wrong thing. So if you stick to a limited palette where texture for me is concerned, and being a landscape artist, I like very much to raise the texture in the front, in the foreground, so that I have where because it's landscape, aerial perspective tells us that we go from the foreground to the midground to the background, where it recedes, becomes less detail, it's bluer, it's grayer. And all those things have to be taken into consideration. It's not just a question of I slap on some textures and it's just there. I mean, there is a reason for my madness. And I will demo how I apply as best I can. Hopefully, you'll be able to see. I'm at a kind of a strange side, but I did wash my hair, so if you see my hair, I'm all good. I'm trying to be funny, but not really being very funny. In any case, I have my board, and I put up today for, as I said, I always start with an intention and a quote. And today, this is very pertinent, and I'll go slow on it because it's very true. A demonstration must always be about the lesson I need to teach, not about making an amazing work of art. That came from Putnam Fine Arts Studio, and she's fabulous, Lori Putnam. But the point is, I have a ton of everyday, daily paintings that I post as my own commitment to myself on Facebook and Instagram. Therefore, I'm not here to prove that I can paint. This little pin is annoying. Okay, there. It's just a matter of showing how the process. That's what I'm here to share. When I was honored to be asked, because it is an easy process to give depth, which is why we're using textures in the landscape, to give depth and interest in the landscape. So before I even start, I'm still going to go on and tell you some other things that I do till I get to, oh, you don't need this one. No. Okay. So I keep usually several boards around me. And this one says squint, right? We know. I always write my intention. Why am I painting this? If I'm not in love with what I'm painting, and if I'm just going to say, well, today's Sunday, I'm going to paint. I don't do that. I dream about it. I have an intention. I collect my thoughts in my journal. I have a box where I keep some photographs or somebody else's work to refer to. I never copy because I don't know how. That's not why. I don't copy because there's no point to copying. But even like realism is not my thing because I have a photograph. So I want to interpret it for myself as well as my viewer. And so I set up, this is all goes on before I start. It only takes a few minutes for me to go through this, but I do it. I decide what eye movement I want. Where do I want my viewer to go? What's my focal area? I say here focal point, but I believe it's an area. And I try to create, and I'll try to point it out again, a triangle that keeps the viewer within the picture plane. So it's important for me to know where I want my viewer to end up. That may change in the process because I'm to the painting as I'm going. And you know your best friend? I always say I have no friends. Well, I have one good friend in my studio, and my friend is my trusty mirror. If I look back, I will always see where there's a problem. It's my best friend. Then, if I don't have, you know, you're supposed to back up after a few strokes. I could try to count to 3, but it usually doesn't happen. If you can't see, I can use this is the opposite of a magnifying mirror. It's a converse of a magnifier. So I could be farther away and it'll show it to me what's there. So I don't need my 30 feet of a studio if I don't have it. Just another tip while I ran over to get the mirror. So the next thing I try to look for is that I put a dot in my center when I start so that I check that I don't have anything in the middle, no 50-50. If I have 60, I'm talking values now too. The dot is for a lot of things, but I'm talking values in this section. So it's 60% light or dark, 40% light or dark, not 50-50. 70% or 30%, or switch it the other way. When I post a tonalist painting, it's more dramatic because the values are so close together and are usually neutrals. So that at that point, it's either 80% dark, not either, it's 80% dark and 20% light. These are approximations. There are no absolutes. I do not go by anything necessarily. I don't count. I look for patterns. I don't go, oh, it's 60-40. I can judge it. It took me years. And then I do a mental tic-tac-toe. But until then, you might have to have a piece of transparent plastic over your work to see, is this my focal, the sweet spot? I tend to go to the top right, and I'll show you some examples, but the sweet spot could be any of these. And you don't want, and here's a tip, all 4 corners of your work needs to be different. You have to look for somehow to change the corners so they're not all the same. It just makes it better. I'm not saying you have to, I'm just saying it will make you more successful. So once I have my reference and my black and white, I do these are way too big for real thumbnails. So you'd have a little thumbnail, but you do an outline. I always paint 3 to 5 big shapes. And I have some examples of a couple things to show. And then I do a value sketch where I have light, light, medium, dark, light, medium, dark, and then the darkest. And then I take all my lights and make them the lightest, and all my darks and make them the darkest for a 2-value design, which is more abstract, which is my no-tan, the Japanese term, which tells me I don't have 50-50. It looks like I have more darks than light. Does that work? I don't know, but before I start, I think about that. I go through this little process so that I know when I look at this reference, it doesn't give me a whole lot. And the black and white hopefully will give me even less because I don't want to see the details. And I take my references from the car as it's moving. I do not want pretty pictures so that I have a blur and I squint and then try to see what details I can create basically. And so I could have lightened this up so you could see down here. This is from, and I use this a lot. If you look at my website, or my dailies, I probably have 100 of these that are every time different. I can't get them to be the same 2 days in a row. And I don't do the same thing, obviously, 2 days in a row. But over time, I'm saying they're always different. And so this is what I'm trying to say is if you find a reference photo, 3 to 5 big shapes that you're comfortable with, that you know really well, then you can experiment with textures. I have 35 different ways of utilizing textures, products, and all. So today I'm going to do one, obviously. If I keep talking, I won't get any. But I have to tell you these things ahead of time. So today I'm going to use some textured clear gesso as my texturizer. But I already baked it. That means it's like I already have it done on a board so that I'm ready to go. Otherwise, I'd have to have the hair. That's the one negative thing about doing things with texture in front of a Zoom, for example, because it takes time for some of the products. Some, like alcohol, dries right away. And alcohol can also drip and be a texture, which I like very much. But to get away from what we already know and to make ourselves more successful, I'm going to use the gesso. So I have all these things set up before I go to my board. And then I know that, and I have to say that everything I learned from Richard McKinley. So this is not something that I created, but this is an example of what happens if I have a dry and underpaintings are a big deal with me. I love an underpainting. I use them, I don't want to say exclusively, but I rarely do a dry underpainting. I usually do a wet underpainting. So either water and the right pastels, and it's good to try the new hard pastels with water and maybe an art spectrum and maybe even a Rocher mark with water to see what happens. It's wonderful. It makes great marks. Alcohol, which that's how I started, and I love using alcohol. I usually use 90% because of the humidity. I'm in Georgia on the coast, so it's very humid. And sometimes I switch over to 70%. And then using gesso creates yet another effect, which I am very intrigued with. So that gives you an idea of some basic texturizing, easy techniques. Okay. Suggestions. Let me put this down and talk about something else over here. By the way, it only takes there's a 7-second rule. And this is great. I think it's absolutely wonderful. The 7-second rule says research in neuroscience indicates that initial impressions are formed within seconds of encountering something new. So when your viewer looks at your painting, you've got 7 seconds to get them to that focal area, or at least to reel them into the photo, not the photo, the painting, so that you get them not to leave the picture plane. And you have to find a way to do that. And before we even go any further, let's talk about let me move this board before it gets dirty. Okay. Let me just put this up and I'll talk about it. See, this is the same, again, the same 3 to 5 big shapes. So we want to, my pastel world and I want to use texture to enhance overall experience. I want to create depth because when you have a two-dimensional plane and you're trying to get people to feel a three-dimensional, how do you do that without having texture? I personally don't know. This is nice and smooth. So what's nice about this, I have contrast. I have some textures right here that are really, I'm afraid to touch anything after this, but let me just see if I can get this real close for you. See how pretty that is? That's beautiful. Not the artist's work, just the way it came out. It's nice in person, but in any case, what happens is when you have that kind of texture, it's nice to have the contrast, an element of design, as well as repeating shapes and all the other things that are not part of today. So the first thing I want to do is create visual interest for my viewer. And I want to convey things like, for example, soft clouds. Um, clouds are always vaporized, so they're soft. So it's nice to have textures around it so that there's again a contrast in the sky, for example. I want to use textures for emotional impact, different emotions. If things are nice and smooth, there's no confrontation, it's calm, it's serene, versus up here where it's more active. Now, I didn't put that in the way back. In the way back, it's bluish, it's gray. Even that little bit of a warm makes it come forward, which is a tricky game. Warms and cools. Yeah. So I like to do that. Keeps it exciting. The depth comes from the light and shadows, and the light creates the form. And let me see what else to tell you. Yeah, the other reason that I like to use textures is because my unique style comes through. A lot of people at this point in my life of art journey can say, "Oh, that looks like Eve Miller." That's nice. That's really nice that somebody can start to, pinpoint that. So we know that texture is a tool. It has an aesthetic appeal. It's pretty, and it resonates emotionally. I want people to say when they look at this, or let's look at another one. This one, that's so. Oh, it's so, I don't know, but it's an emotion. It makes me feel good. It's happy. It's got the happiest color here. But yellow is the first to leave in the landscape. So that's why I have this orange yellow down here. And then you have to leave it. The red wouldn't be here necessarily, but the red are my accents. I call it arm candy to connect so I keep you in the picture plane as a triangle. I have all these tricks, but I can't remember them all today at one time and the amount of time we have. Here's another one, much different. Not a whole lot of that kind of eye-catching texture because I let the texture come through from the underpainting, which is an exciting thing to do. You can have too much texture, okay? Close your eyes. Don't look because I don't want to look either. But this is an example of she went crazy. Same composition, 3 to 5 big shapes. But this is over the top ridiculous. I want it to be an emotional feel, not like, oh my God, what is she trying to do? We don't want to do that. So those are some examples there. I am going to do a demo, I promise. But in the meantime, I have a few more things to show you. And by the way, the easiest way to create texture is your mark making. I'm just showing you just, possibilities. It could be hatching, it could be any way, pointillism, scumbling, This is twisting. I use that a lot. Just twist the pastel stick. Rolling, I have small pieces of round pastels. I roll. I add dusting. I take my palette knife and I scrape harder pastels and press it into, say, the front where there might be some oyster shells or texturized something. I don't have to identify it and give it a name. So my suggestion for textures is to take some paper and make as many, see, I still didn't finish, some strokes and marks and see how different you can make it. Questions before I continue? I'm willing to answer. Okay. Now this is Vistaprint. I didn't go to Vistaprint. Online I did. I went to Vistaprint and I I took a photograph of one of my paintings and I had them make a board. So if I'm doing a demo like today, rather than my hands are already filthy from touching everything. I don't want my painting ruined. I have this painting in a gallery. The bigger version sold, so I don't have that one. So I have this, and this is a great way to talk about it. So I usually have my viewer go in from the left. This is texturized, so I scumbled a lighter pastel over it to get you to my focal area. And I do use an orb a lot, but when people do that, then they know they've gotten it from me and yeah, you should find your own. But that said, I do that because if I have some kind of an arm candy, something here, I've gotten your attention and you've gone over here because that's where your eye's gonna go. And then here is my darkest dark and my lightest light. But my eye shoots up to here because this is even lighter, but it's got a little bit of a purple in there or a darker hue, and then you come back. So there's the triangle to keep you in the picture plane. And these became more of a turquoisey dark blue-green so that you know it's receding. Question? Another example. This particular one has a lot of texture. I had an underpainting of an acrylic light, red light acrylic, like you saw my board that I haven't done yet. And then I added some pastel ground over it. And then where I wanted your eye to go, start over here. It is very, very saturated and intense. And I usually use an S-curve as my armature because it's a landscape. This just is conducive for that. Not all landscapes have an S. It's just they're all letters. Sometimes you have clumps of copses of trees, and so it would be a round armature or a big bunch of trees this way and land here, which would be an L armature, and that can be reversed. So armatures are a whole different workshop. And I like this one. This one I'm very soft, very calm with when I look at it. It makes me calm. And so again, the texture, it's a whole lot of texture in here. It gets to be less because of aerial perspective back here. This is an L armature with an S. You can have more than one armature. You thought you were just getting texture today. Anyway, here there's a highlight that'll get you to jump over to this little highlight, and this is, you have to be careful. It's not the middle, but it's hovering. You got to be careful if it starts to got to look for problems. And then this is my last of these to show you. Again, I have you coming in on the left because we read left to right, and we go across and end up on the, like I said, the tic-tac-toe. So this is the bottom right for my focal area. It's not always the top. It's sometimes the bottom. Rarely for me, it's on the left. Somehow I tend to go to the right. But these things are all pointing to this. Everything's going there. That's what it's about. Everything, and my four corners are different. I have a little pink in the sky there. I have a little darker hue in that corner and more of a green warm in this one. So that's another good tip, which has nothing to do with textures. Let's continue. Okay. Any questions, please ask. I feel like, I can't see you, you can't see me, but we're having a lovely time. Okay. All right. So the first thing I did is I put red cad light acrylic, which looks like, I'll show you how I did it on my board. Okay. So the board ends up, let me put this back. I have one hand with a liquid. Okay. There. Okay. So this is how the board starts once I already have on here where I had this shape, which I know are grasses or weeds, but you're not supposed to say what it is. It's a shape, okay? So I have my sky was one shape, my tree line we're not supposed to say is a shape. I keep my shadow shapes connected. I come down, and then it's really only four basic shapes. I mean, I made 5 out of it by seeing, because I know when I took this, that's where you take your own photos, very important. I know this is pluff mud. It's hard to see it's hard to relate to somebody else's reference. It makes no sense. And it's hard for you to see that. So what I did try to do is I downloaded, so it wasn't a photograph. Maybe that'll be a little bit, because it's matte, but it shows up, you see, as a printout as all dark. I know it's not. So I don't really think it helps in that sense, because there is a little bit of a variation in the very foreground. There's pluff mud. You don't know what it is. It has a smell. It's congruent with the marsh. It's organic, it's debris, it's dead things, and it's a purplish green. In any case, so in order to do this red cad light, I gotta go over and take this new board for us. Okay. Uh-huh.
Bonnie's wondering what your substrate is.
Okay. A substrate is what I'm just looking, my head is making a shadow from one of the lights, and I could put the high hats on, but then it's too bright. A substrate is anything you're working on, whether it's a panel, a board, a piece of paper, whatever you're painting on is a substrate.
No, what are you using?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Why not? I'm using UART 400 or UART 500 usually. This is 400. And I always use a mounted board and it's expensive, because of the liquid. When I mount my own paper, it will buckle no matter what I do, no matter how many books, no matter how many brayers I use to go over it, no matter if I use the ticky-tacky that you peel back on the gator board or foam boards. So to cut to the chase for me, because I paint every day, I just get the mounted boards. I don't do this every day. I do a lot on gator board that I do the ground myself. Marble dust with gesso and water, and you have other formulas. And then I'll just do that on gator board, and that works really well, and I enjoy that. I know Doug Wagner uses them too. And it's nice because it's already cut to a certain size that'll automatically fit into a frame. Did I answer?
Yes, and people are loving your explanations, by the way.
They would would love me so much more if things were normal.
No, this is great. No worries at
It's
all.
okay. They can always come to my studio and we can play here. Okay, enough fooling around. This is my red cad light acrylic, golden. It doesn't matter. I buy the cheap stuff. It makes no difference. You just add, if you want it darker, you add more. You want less, yeah, okay. So I take my UArt, and you see why I have so many. And it's doesn't have anything on it. I have to I'm so sorry, but I have to remove this, otherwise the whole thing is gonna fall. Okay, we can put this here for now. Okay, so I'm taking one of these spongy brushes. I could take one of those cheap, what do we call it? Hardware store nickel brushes. But for this part, I like a soft gradient. So all I do is I start at the top, and this isn't very dark. And the reason I don't start too dark, you see how beautiful that is? How smooth that is? Lovely. And then I don't start too dark because I also will combine, not today because I'm not going to wait for it to dry. And it's just a matter of hitting it with the hair dryer. But I add quinacridone azo gold, which is a yellow. I'll show it to you. I mixed it up to show you what it is. And when this is dry, I'll do the same thing, and it still will be just as gorgeous, a beautiful gradient like this. See, I don't feel this is a waste. This board will get used at some point. So I like sharing. I think it's so wonderful that I can change this to what it looks very light, but in real life, it's not. It's definitely like the board I'm using for us. Now, the quinacridone azo gold, that is a mouthful, looks like this. So here's the difference. If I put this on top of here, then I get kind of a sun, like if anybody saw what I posted last night to prepare for today, and that was a golden color. I do very, very much like twilight, magic time, not necessarily the golden hour, but that twilight right after the sun sets. And what happened was, and I put it online, I think on Facebook, that a friend of mine, please don't tell people I actually have a friend, because I always say I don't have any friends, but I do have a couple. Anyway, she lives right on the marsh, right due west, in a house to die for. So she said, "You want to sit on the porch?" Well, yeah, I think so. And so I just sketched a quick little thing, and then I came home and diluted it with like what I'm going to do today. And oh my God, it came out so good. Okay, so now this board will dry, and that'll be the first layer. Then suppose this is what we just dried, right? Now I'm going to texturize it. I'm going to add some textures. Now I've worked out, I'm going over to my other table where I have my gesso to show you that. Okay, and I have some water. Now I gotta try not to fall. Okay, so we have our board with our red CAD light. You know what? I'm gonna try to shut that one light just a minute. Maybe you won't see the shadow as much. And I can also put on if you like. Is that any better, and can we still see? Let's go over here. Is that less shadowy? I think so. Well, not much. Okay,
That's good.
we're okay. All right. So I have this much. I moved it around so it looks like more than what it is. Very little. I don't use a whole lot. I don't want to clump it. I want to make things gentle and tranquil and pretty and all that. So I have a little bit of this product is what I put in. We have a store here called Pop Shelf. It's like a dollar store. I don't know if you have that, but they're everywhere. And it's an elite dollar store. And this is the Montmartre, which is a very cheap brand. And it just says clear textured gesso. So there's already pumice in it. I could have just colored this with the red cad light. I could have added my own pumice. I can do all kinds of things. But for us, so I have some water, right? And I'm going to take one of those cheap nickel brushes, different from the spongy, because I don't want, let me just get the right brush. Yeah. I don't want smooth, right? It's being textured for a reason. I want to have it so it's raised, it's more 3D. So I have this brush, which is an old crummy hardware brush. And you see how the bristles are disaster? Yes. Whoa, excellent. I want that. Cheap brushes lose their hair, so you got to be careful. So all I'm going to do is pour some water in here. Okay. And I'm having so much fun trying to find a spot here that I don't spill. Okay. I have this huge studio. You would think I wouldn't be looking for space. Okay, I'm mixing it and I'm gonna have it this consistency. I might have to add some to it. I have to look first. That's why I use this clear plastic so I can move it around the side and decide, is that enough water, too much water? Do I want it thicker? On top of this, if I don't like it afterwards, even after the softest pastels are on there, I can add pastel ground, a whole bunch of other things. For example, oh, let me share this. When I was in the Pop Shelf store, I came across this, which is, it's called Deco Art Lightly Textured Acrylic. So it's already all mixed in this lovely mossy green color. I took every bottle they had and they stopped making it. That's why it was there so cheap, $1/4 a bottle. You kidding? They had like 20. I'll take them all. And then I didn't even know what to do with it at the time, but this one says Deco Art Pottery Texture. And it says textured acrylic, and it's kind of a peachy color. Very nice. So there are lots and lots of options. Your art, oh, there's so much to experiment. Don't get me going. Okay, so all I'm doing on here is showing you what I would do, and I'll see once I put it if I need to add more. The idea is this. When I take, let's say this is my middle, and I'm going to put that, I always do that so that I know no 50-50. And I always mark these. I don't ever use a grid because I don't, but I just put these markers for, oh, that's way off. I eyeball it, sometimes way out. Okay. And then I know that maybe my horizon, it's a high horizon, right? So it's going to be about the land, which at landscape art is texture. Of course, I want a high horizon. And then I don't know, I just picked this up, no particular, which is great because then you don't know what's going to happen. I like that. And let's say my horizon will be something like that. So I'm going to take this goop and I'm going to say to myself, where do I want it the most? Well, I want you to go up here. This is where I had supposedly decided this is the focal area. So I'm going to put some goop like in here and maybe up in here. And if I have a dirty spot, I let that stay. Now this is a good consistency. And I hear it. And then, and I'm at a funny angle. I know that there's some pluff mud in here at the bottom, so I'm going like this, And I know to do that. And if I want more texture, I can take the back of my brush and I can make more if I want to. I don't like it, it's too much. I take it away. But I don't. And if it drips, I'm okay with that too. Embrace the drips. And then that dries. Now, let's suppose I wanted to add a little more in here. I could do that and already have a tree line, but don't get me going. I have to do something else on another board for us. Okay, let it go. So you see what I do, and then that dries. Question? Please talk to me, somebody. Pam, question?
I think people are just so mesmerized watching your process. But I'll call out when a question comes into the chat. Anybody have a question? You can go ahead and unmute for a moment if you do.
And Eve, this is great. Just keep going. Just keep talking.
Well, can we please meet normally when I'm not part of that?
Well, of course.
I don't know what the heck happened, and I'm so. But hey, sometimes it's for the better. You don't need to see me. I have to have my roots done anyway. So,
Now, oh, Eve, I've got a quick question. You know, I've done something similar to this, but I was using a UART 300, I think. And I was the first time I tried it, but I went directly, I did a watercolor underpainting,
yep,
I think. I'm trying to remember my sequence. And then I did pastel ground, sort of just, I was
Yep.
doing a river with grassy banks and then a gravelly stream bottom. And I just did pastel ground right then and then did pastel on top. And it seemed to really give me good texture too. So you're showing me, I've never thought of trying gesso first.
Well, I put gesso first. I put it after. I put pastel ground. I'll read to you some other things that I was going to show you nicely by my desk, but that's okay. I got it here. I use Art Spectrum, the primer. I use it sometimes with different colors of the primer. I use sludge. Do you guys know what sludge is?
No.
Oh, I'll tell you what sludge
Oh,
is.
is it your pastel debris, your dust all mixed up and
It's gesso.
Oh, okay.
It's gesso.
Gesso sludge. No, I've never heard of it. Wow.
Okay, it's
Where
the
did you get it?
cheaper, it's the part that's harvested when they wash the product to make the white or the clear gesso. This is a byproduct. It dries kind of a gray, which for me, when you have a marsh, this works great. So if you look closely at some of my stuff, whatever that means, you'll see I'll put sludge. It's a texturizer for me. I can also, let's say the sludge is wet, I can take something like this. Let's say I wanted to make, I wanted to put some, oh dear, crab pots. Here is some screening that comes in a roll. I can cut it to any size. As the sludge is wet, put it on top. It'll dry. I can peel it off and I'll have some raised marks. So yeah, that's why I say I have 35, I probably have 50 different ways. This top it's dried in one spot. There we go. And so there's a lot of different ways of doing that. I never get bored. Here's something else you may not know. That same Pop Shelf store had this stuff. At the same shelf that I found that texturized acrylic, they call this a company Funto, Funto. This happens to be tangerine. I grabbed this so you could see it well. It's textured acrylic paint, not acrylic gesso. And so it looks like this. And if I wanted to, where's that board I just put down? The one I'm not teaching with, if I ever get to the other board. The one we just put the practice gesso, textured gesso. You don't need to go in it like I just did. I'm just saving time. I would have taken a palette knife. But let's say for some whatever crazy reason, I've decided I wanted this brightness. Look how thick this is. But it comes in, I have every color. I don't use it very often because maybe it's a little too thick. And I'm not in love with orange, and I don't know what that's about because I do love colors, but you can see the possibilities.
Oh, yeah.
So there's something new for us. Oh, I'm just full of goodies. Okay. Put the brush. Do I want to put the brush in the water? Yes, I do, because otherwise everything will get dried up. That's not cool. Okay. So, let's see. We are at the point where we can take this off. I don't know what I'll do with this. I'm going to do something and I'll post it because God knows I post every day. People go, how do you do that? How long does it take for you to do a painting? Well, it's already done in my head most of the time. All right, we're going to the board. I'm going to attempt for today's trick, and I do this. I like to feel where I'm going with this. I know I'm going to have my horizon in here. And to save time, because I have no idea what time, how are we doing? Okay. We have time. I'm going to start like I always do. Let's do that to begin with so I don't, let me just get some, okay, water here too so I don't have to go back. So we're going to talk about something called a fractured sky. I'm going to teach how to do that. So in landscape, okay, I'm going to put my dot. I shouldn't be doing it with a pen, right? Something like that. Let me just do my marks. This calms me doing my marks. It sets my process in motion. That's all it does. It doesn't do, as I said to you, I really don't use it for anything like a grid. And I could have picked out my horizon without that mark, but it sets my mind. It's a pattern I try to imitate, so I'm in the groove when I start. So, you know, half an hour, I have the boards ready. I have it in my mind what I'm going to paint, and that's it. Once that's done, then it's a half-hour painting process, maybe. So, and I need to have a sky that's believable for my viewer, because in a landscape, and I have played around with, if you look, some skies that I see right now this time of year. But for example, in this painting, you can see that I'm not going to use it, but for this painting, this is the kind of sky I'm seeing this time of year. And it's lovely and wonderful, and it makes it believable because I used a fractured sky. So to have a fractured sky, what you do is let me put, where am I going to have it? I'm going to just put my horizon and I'll explain. Okay, so a fractured sky is how nature really is. And I'll take it out of my little doodad. What happens is if you do a fractured sky where you have a blue-violet, that's what's up there. And then a blue, and then a blue-green, because that you have a lot of green in the sky. And then it comes into a yellow tint. Not, when I say any of these colors, there's no absolute, except for the fact they're all the same value, exact. You screw up on a value, it doesn't read right. And then what we have, which brings us to the horizon, is a dirty horizon where the moisture and the dirt particles and the dusts live, and it's a purple, a red purple actually. So what I do, even though I have all this texture going on here, I could do it up here, but I never do because I like it to be soft. I think of skies as soft. We're not talking a storm or anything like that. So what you do is what I do is I keep in a little tin like this, I keep my fractured sky colors because they're analogous colors. They will always have color harmony. And so I have my blue violet, my blue green, etc. And then you're going to probably have, what do we call it in English? Frisson, shutters. You're going to shutter because I use my palm to blend my skies. Yes, I do. If I don't use my palm to blend, and that's the only time I blend. I don't like blending, but on my skies, it works beautifully. So if it works, I do it. And if I needed to blend, which I don't, I would use Baccarat, if you know what this is. Anybody need me to explain?
Yes.
I heard a very tiny little, yeah.
Yes? Okay. So instead of the pipe cleaner things, you get this at the hardware store. It's they use it to fill in gaps and joints when you're building something. It's really for caulking projects. But what's great about it is you can just take a piece off and you can have a point if you need it for something. It's very useful. So this is called Baccarat. So that's another little tip. And in reference to fractured skies, let me just explain this for you so that might help. If I'm at the top, okay, above my head at the zenith, this is what is the part that's the fractured sky. Now you see these colors I'm not going to, you are using a value of that color. So you have your blue violet, your blue green, a green, which kind of mixes as soon as you have the blue with the yellow, and then an orange, which is really a peach, and a red, which is really a pink. And then because at the horizon, now you're going from here from foreground. So the yellow is the first thing to drop. Then you have some orange, you have some red, but we're talking all the hues of red. We're not talking fire engine red. This is all color harmony, another big lesson. But as you're going back, then you have some lavenders and purples. If you look at some of my work, it's really obvious. And then you have some blue, blue, gray. But the blue with the red, as it meets at the horizon, is where the red violet comes in for the dirty horizon. So if you're able, wherever you live, to see at dusk or late in the day, preferably on the water, which is, or on the marsh, if you want to come with me tonight, we'll find it. And you look, you can't miss it. People thought I was nuts last night. I kept saying, ah, do you see the dirty horizon? They're like, what are you talking about? I said, well, it's purple right at the horizon. You can't see it if you don't look for it, you know? You got to look for it. So I'm eventually going to start this. Yes, I'm going to put my blue and see what happens. Everything is debatable. Sometimes the blue is not the right blue, depending on how light or dark the acrylic, red light acrylic is. I'm still doing a blue. I'm doing a blue-green. I'm doing a kind of a yellowish. It's tricky. I don't like using too much of this. Well, it worked nice this time. That's good to know. Okay, good. So you see, because the values are the same, this is a purple. Violet, we said. But you see that as this is very light. So you got to have the right value. And then I'm changing the value a little bit because that's the fractured sky. As I come down here, I'm getting a different spectrum of light closer to the horizon. So this is where you saw red, that bright red, which is really a pink. And then I'm going to put, well, that went. I'll have to change it. Okay. And then at the horizon, this is a light red violet, but it's very pretty. Now, that said, once I start, and I'm on my tippy toes, so I could fall over or something. I just use my palm, that part of my palm. I don't want to rip it open and bleed. I'm not a blender. I'm not gonna call myself a blender. But I don't know how else to create this kind of a beautiful sky. So now we're going to take a harder pastel. I have to clean my hand. And okay. Normally, I take a new pastel 305 for my dark. But because I'm fooling around here with time and stuff, I think it would be nice if I would cut to the chase. So I'm going to take like a phthalo color, dark, and I'm going to block in, and then I'm going to dilute it as best I can, as quickly as I can, with some gesso and water, like I showed you I put on there on top of that pastel. And it's going to make drips and change the values. It's very exciting. But it takes a second to dry, so I may have to buzz the hairdryer. We'll have to see how it goes. I never know till I do it. So I'm taking my hard pastel, a little piece, and I'm painting from, I always paint from my value sketch. So today I'm using this black and white as my value sketch. Okay, I don't have the room to get all that other stuff out. So I'm just softly putting the shape I see in the back. Now remember, I'm not trying to show you how good I can paint. I'm only trying to show you my process. So if it screws up, oh well. Oh, I was saying I normally start with the 305 and then I'll go in where I see in here I would have put perhaps, oh, is that you, Pam? No, it's not.
No,
That's why I left it on in case there was something for Pam. Anyway, and then I use the 212 orange where I see some ochre, and I might use whatever colors I put. The rose, I use the rose where underneath the green of the hard new pastel. But I can do this with one stick. Like this is what I did when I went to my friend's porch. That's all I had was a empty board, no color whatsoever. Nothing was there. And I want to put this down. And I just did this kind of thing. I just looked where things were. Of course, she has water. And she's a nice person, so it's really great. There's dark going in there. There's some, I guess, some sort of, I don't know, water or something in here. I don't know what it is. I don't want to know what it is. And then this kind of goes, how far, I want to know how far is this from this? It goes up more. And it's pretty intense. But we know that down here, and I already have stuff in here. There's, I want to go off, right? There's the middle. I don't want to have that opening left to right in the middle. And then there's stuff over here. And then this is going to be just with it wet. I don't have to put more. There's so much pigment on there. It'll be fabulous. Okay, question? Okay, I'm going to take, this is pretty liquidy. So instead, I think I'm going to take, I don't want a whole lot of liquid going on because it'll take forever. Not forever, but longer than I want. So what I want to do is I'm just going to put in a little container, a little bit. I have a wet brush, looks like this, same brush. I'm just going to, just because I added the water, I think it's just a lot of water in there, and the wet brush will be enough liquid, I hope, so that if I have to give it a shot of the dryer, it'll only be like a couple seconds. Okay, so I start at the top and pray. Okay, okay. So all we're going to do is I'm going to tap it. There's no water in here. I can turn it upside down. Just the brush is a little wet. If I were going to use the other stuff that had already all that liquid,
I'm sorry,
um,
so this is the gesso again? Just,
this is just textured, clear gesso and a wet brush.
got it.
See, at this point, when I start to get here, I don't look at anything. I tell myself, just like I had to do with the video, make it work. Find a way to make it work. I do try to get the dark out of the way because it does create a mess sometimes as far as covering over. And what's the point of having all this underpainting stuff if in fact I have to clean this? Here's water. So all I'm doing is cleaning my brush in the water, and I have a roll of toilet paper. Yes, I have a roll of toilet paper right here. I'm blotting. It's paper towel. I do entertain myself, I have to say. Okay, leave that alone, leave that alone. This goes like so. This is good. Okay. Then all we're going to do is, this is just water. I didn't even dip in here. So that's what I was trying to explain to you. You don't need all this fancy stuff. Water's great. And it creates all kinds of textures. And there is texture underneath. And there, look at that. That's great. I'd like to have some drips, but then it's going to take time. But oh, we got to do what the painting wants. I'm not going to put anything there. Now, I always go by that 80% rule because I enter stuff still. And so I know that if I enter a show, whatever the show is, in my mind, I have to have 80% soft pastel as my last layer. So if I want to leave this, which I may, that's okay. That's not even 20%. I don't have to have that covered if I don't want to. Generally, I probably would. Now, the bad news here is that I'm not backing up. And so I hope as painters, you all remember, you need to back up a lot. I am going to back up a second. I have to see, I can't even see. Oh, gosh, it's hard from this angle, but we're doing it. So you see that I have light, medium, and darks in here. And I'm switching my brush to what I normally would use if I wasn't using that. It's a number 6 Snap by Princeton. And it's, all my stuff is dirty and I like it. I like to put dirty water, dirty brushes. It adds to it. This is just so that maybe I can move it around a little bit. We'll add to it. Okay. There's not, if I was going to be true to that reference, that horizon line, which mine is dipping, my left eye is nearsighted, my right one is far. It's tricky, but it doesn't have much. It's not like a real tree, painting a tree. And so that's my block in. If you don't mind, I'm going to just take a picture of it because I know somebody will say, do you have a picture of that? And I won't have it. So I'll do it right now, just so we all know that there is one that exists if we needed it for anything. Very good. I'm excited. But of course, I'm always excited. Okay, let me see how much moisture we have on this board.
So Eve, Bonnie's wondering how you decide when to use the gesso versus the water to dilute your darks.
So, okay, when do I decide to use the gesso? Say it again.
Decide when to use the gesso versus the water to dilute your dark.
I paint very intuitively.
You're just
Oh,
playing it by ear as you go along, huh?
yeah, I'm thinking to myself, if the water is simple and that works, and I like to not use the same thing all the time, so it makes it more interesting. There's no real reason besides I'm just looking at it going, it's a marsh, and I know it's going to come down to a bunch of mud, so maybe I don't want to have. I'd like a little bit more of the flow down in the foreground. Please plug your ears for 5 seconds while I dry this and I'll get it done. Maybe. I will try.
That's better. Yeah, it reads better. I could probably leave it now.
How do you know when something is dry is you turn it where get light on it. If there's any reflection from the light. No, this is dry. It's okay. But you can see close up the texture and the drips. And I have my values. It's a great process, light, medium, and dark. I
Nice.
could stop there, but I don't want to. I'm going to continue unless somebody wants me to stop. Pam?
No, no, keep going. And I'm loving those drips.
And if I get far enough along, I'll show you how I do a moon. That's fun.
No, keep going, please. We are so into this.
Oh yeah. That's what they all say. Okay. So, um I'm thinking to myself, I'm just going to start with my distant tree line, right? And I know that's in the back, and I know that it's going to have to be dark. The darkest is whatever is straight up, because that's what Carlson said in his book. The light doesn't get in as much. So this is maybe from that side would be better. I don't know. All right, let's try it. I hear that. I love hearing that. Oh, that's so nice. So all I'm doing is taking a dark pastel, and this particular color, which is already an ochre, somehow whatever was there mixed and it made its own ochre, which is I see in the color photo right up on top, is that whole thing. I don't have to do anything. I just have to keep playing. So this is the same pastel that I was using before, but I'm not going to use it exclusively, obviously. I'm just setting in some, I just like to make sure I get my darks in here. I'm going very lightly, and you can hear it. I always want to try to listen to that. Okay, now I'm going to change and go to, if I can see, which is a little tricky in here with this, without the hi-hats. I'm going to go to a cool in the back, a little bit of a cool green, because it's in the back. Even though they have in the actual reference, there is a lot of warmer yellow green. I don't care. I know that in the back I have to have cools. So I am going to do that. But I'm also going to go over that with a warmer khaki, should we say, color, something like. And I like this beige on border, that the way I do it. If anybody doesn't know, I'll be glad to explain it, so that the four corners are exposed, and these are different. These two corners look similar. This is a little darker, so I'll let it go, but it's a little bit, it could use a little bit more of a change. I gotta back up and see if there's anything there. Oh, okay. It's all right. Now it's time for me to play with colors. Oh, I'm not gonna change these. These are what's underneath. It's not 20%. I like it. I don't want to start screwing that up. But I would like to have a little bit of, this might be the wrong, I know these intimately in the light, but unfortunately I don't have much light going on here. Put a little bit of this, so yeah, oh, that's nice. Oh, lovely. Oh, fun. If I put something in one place, I have to put it in another. I'm turning it on its side and just making, I don't have to put every single weed or leaf or grass. I just need a couple just to say that's what I am here. I could stop there, but I'm going to add a couple things and then we can chat again. I might add stuff to it later, but then again, I may not. Let's see. Let's put in a little bit of warm in the very front, like a red violet, a little bit of a red violet where it's dark. Soft. Scale of 1 to 10, about a 1 is my pressure. And that's going over, you see some of the texture we had before. Okay. Now, I told you one of the ways to make texture is to use the twist. So here, I want you, and did that by itself. I want you to go up to here, right? So I'm going to do a twist. That's a bit much of a twist, but I wanted you to see it. But if that's the case and it's too much, I take a push pin, wherever my push pin went that I had before. I don't see one, I just improvise. I have a banker's clip, make it less. Okay, I just don't want it to be obnoxious. Okay, and then let's put one up here. And then up here. Just so your eye goes up here. Oh, that's about it. I might, if I wanted to be brave, which of course I'll be brave, is put maybe another little bit of a mark that's a little lighter. Like so. And then sometimes I put my initials in it. Sometimes I put my son's initials or play around a little bit. And I'll show you the moon. I'll stop with that after I show you the moon. Let me see how it looks. See, it's another one of those 3x5 shapes of the same composition, and it doesn't look anything like what I showed you. Find a reference photo that you're comfortable with. Play with it. It's very fun. I'm just going over here to get a Q-tip to show you the moon. I wasn't going to, so I didn't prepare it, but I am already here. So I take a Q-tip. Now I know I have stuff underneath because I have an underpainting. So I say to myself, tic-tac-toe. I'm going to go up to the right. And in here, I'm going to just take this away a little bit. Okay. And there it is. Let me move it closer for you. Can you see that? Barely. There it is. And where is a yellow? Okay. So I'll take a yellow and I'll add a purple. Yeah, this one's dirty, so we should wipe it. And I go around as best I can. I take my pinky, which is probably dirty, so soap. And I just go around a little bit, soft. There. Now, there it is. Can you see that right there?
Okay, so I didn't anticipate that the trick was gonna be a dirty pinky.
Yeah. 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 Isn't that something? I'm going to lower this down and kind of present myself if I can from wherever I am. How about this way? Is that any better? There we are. So, questions?
Wow, Eve, I mean, wow.
Wow.
You know, that was kind of the thing that amazed me personally was that I thought you were going to continue to go further. And then all of a sudden, I realized you didn't need to. Like you just took it to a certain place and stopped, and it just hit me that it was just like it was perfect. It was perfect right there. Yeah. What the heck? Oh my God.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people want to do is pick at it. And they think that if they add, and so when the question becomes, am I done? When am I done? Am I ever going to be done? The question is, if I add one more thing, is it going to help the painting story? So it goes back to how we started. If you don't know how to start your painting, well, then you're not going to know how to finish it. So what's my story? My story is I was walking past this spot most days for years, and I love this spot. It's where I lived in this community before where I am now, which I love. It's maybe more beautiful, I don't know. And I know it so well, and so what's the story? The story is I would like the emotion that I feel for this spot to translate to someone else who maybe will never have the opportunity to see that particular spot. And the textures help create that depth, that emotion, that visual impact. And that's why I use it. Ta-da!
But I was looking at your reference photo, and I know that this has everything to do with that spot in terms of the emotions, but it has nothing to do with that photo in a lot of ways. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Right.
So,
Absolutely. And it never does.
yeah.
It never does. As I said, I've done this over 100 times. I don't know how many times. And it's nice because I can teach all the good things about texturizing succinctly, and I trust my gut, number one, but I knew it was going to be okay because I know the result. My heart's in the right place for creating this feeling. The technology part of it, of course, does help, the brand, as they say. But that said, I think that it comes across. And if you like, I'll be happy to take a picture that is, not from the video, and send it to you in case anybody has a question.
Yeah, that would be lovely. I
Good.
also thought, I'm sorry, I'm dominating this.
No,
Anybody
please.
to jump in, but from my, limited, I'm a newbie, but when you first did the sky and you did sort of like stripe of these colors, I thought, well, obviously she's gonna do something to make that look a little less contrived. But then, as you continued on with the rest of the painting and whatever, it looks so lovely, not contrived at all. It's perfect and gorgeous and natural looking. It's just amazing. It's
I
just
love you,
amazing.
Pam.
I
We
love
should tell
you.
we should tell them how we met in the hallway in Albuquerque. It's been love forever.
I know, you took me under your wing. You were my very first friend at IAPS. I knew no one and you were so sweet.
Oh, well, now people are gonna think I have friends. Come on, stop.
You're
Um,
not, you do have me as a friend, whether you like it or not.
I like it. I like it. I like it. And I really do appreciate the Pastel Society of the West Coast because you guys do a tremendous amount. It's enough. I wish I was close enough that I could do paint outs and all those things because that makes it so much more, when you're with a group and things. I'm very isolated. We don't even have, I mean, I was a founding member of when I lived in South Carolina of that one. Um, and they wanted me to be president of that, but I said, I live in Georgia. I don't know how how do you do that? So, so we don't have anything. Even in Florida, until you go to South Florida, there's not a whole lot of stuff. So I think that the fact that you all work together and have a real good program. It's really wonderful. You should be real proud. I'm proud to be a member.
Oh, well, thank goodness for technology to make the country feel a lot smaller, huh? Carol said, I enjoyed this immensely. She's at a grandson's baseball game and said that you made the time fly by, plus she learned some new tricks.
I
And
have loads of tricks anytime.
Bonnie says she learned several lessons presented today.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, yeah, so wonderful. Anybody want to chime in? Any questions or comments? Feel free to unmute yourself, folks. Maybe people can't talk.
So Ev,
They're
this
hurt. I don't know.
Ev, this was really great. I appreciate it because I like to push things around and try different techniques, and I love the texture. So it's always great affirmation when there's somebody like you that are doing what I like to do, but maybe not as well as you. But
Well,
anyway,
remember, I haven't been painting very long, so I have, what do I want to say? Compounded the effect because I paint every day and art found me very late in life. And, so I'm a newbie too. And so I like new things and I like to try. But again, I learned, and I always give Mr. McKinley credit. Mr. McKinley is a fabulous instructor. And as a teacher myself all my life, I was a language teacher. When you get the right person at the right time, it really, really helps to develop. So Yeah, and I appreciate all the lovely comments. Of course I do. And if somebody has a question, please don't hesitate. I mean, I'm just full of it, you know, lots of tips, tools, tricks.
Francesca says she loves your experimentation and she's inspired to try it.
Wonderful. All good stuff.
Yeah. Very exciting. Well, Eve, I just want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with us this afternoon for you, this morning for us. We appreciate it very much. Thanks for hanging in there despite starting off with a few technical difficulties. It all turned out great. So
It did. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today and for keeping my addiction going.
Thank you, Eve.
Thank you so
Excellent.
much. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It really is. It's a pleasure. Anytime.
okay, thanks folks for tuning in, and everybody have a wonderful Thanksgiving.
Yes.
And we'll
Yeah.
see you online, and thanks again.
Okay. Be well, everybody.
All
Thank you.
right. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'll send you a picture, Pam, and you do whatever you want with it.
Okay, send me the painting.
Okay. Ah, I heard that. That was very funny.
I know. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye.